Hey, Jim Roman here. Welcome to another episode of the Jim Roman Show, where we talk about how to build a better business to build a better life. Today, we have a special episode with a special guest. We have Dawn Whitestone with Whitestone Business Partners. Dawn, welcome to our episode.
Thanks, Jim. It is an honor to be with you on the Jim Roman Show.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for being here. For those of you, this is your first time, we want to welcome you. We have a special treat. As I mentioned, we have Dawn Whitestone with Whitestone Partners. We'll be talking about R.A.R.E leadership. Typically how these would work is I would talk for train for 20 minutes and then at the end answer your questions. But today we're going to actually take a different format. Today we're going to be doing coffee with a coach. That's when we drink coffee and answer your coaching questions. So if you have questions as we go through today's episode, feel free to post below. Whether you watch this live or recorded, we'll still check those questions out. So feel free to do that. As you join, we just want to welcome you. So we'll jump into it in just a moment. I just want to get my live page up and running so I can see who is joining us to our special episode today. So give me 3 seconds and we will jump into it. Awesome. And there we are. We are gone live. Excellent. Well, Dawn, again, want to welcome you to this special episode with Coffee with a Coach, where we drink coffee and answer your coaching questions. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Jim. I really appreciate you inviting me onto the show.
Well, this is an interesting topic. I was doing some Googling the other day and I was like, okay, leadership, what are some of the styles? What is it? And stuff like that. So I'm excited about what you have to share today about that. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you originally from and how did you become a counselor, a coach, and know about leadership?
Oh, that could be a really long story. I grew up in Indiana. I'm actually a farm girl from Indiana. My dad was a teacher and a farmer, and so we knew how to work hard, and we were taught to have a real thirst for knowledge and wisdom. So I moved to Orlando in 1992, and I've raised 2 children since that time. I kind of fell into leadership. I became a counselor and was working as a counselor, and then I actually felt like God called me into coaching. A big part of what I've done in my life has been working with people through inner healing prayer work, and I was doing a lot of that. And at one point, I was actually working with an addictions facility and managing several programs, and I felt like God was calling me to leave my secure job and start a business. And so I did, and that didn't go like I planned at all. And I found that the people that were walking into my door were business people rather than the children and parents that I'd worked with previously. And so I had to change my business model, and I had to learn how to work with business people, and I got into coaching. And so and then along the way, I met you, and here I am.
Yay!
Yay!
So my first official question about leadership is there's different types, right? And if you look online, there's democratic leadership, autocratic leadership, strategic leadership. I mean, there's a list, whether it's 5 types of leadership, whether there's 9 types. What would you say is your favorite or you prefer out of all the types of leadership that's out there? What style do you choose?
You know, I think we need different styles of leadership based on the situations that present themselves. So probably if I had to pick one of those, it would be situational leadership. But in order to be a situational leader, you have to understand what's going on. And I just find that trying to keep track of all of those different styles of leadership is you know, nobody sits there as a leader and goes, okay, today I'm going to apply autocratic leadership because that is, you know, I mean, no, we don't do that. What I like about the model that we use with R.A.R.E leadership is that you don't have to do all of that. It's about becoming mature. It's about growing ourselves and understanding how to grow the people around us. And and being able to apply it's natural. It's a very natural way of leading because it's a way of living your life.
Awesome. So you said in preparation for our episode today, I was talking to you about getting people to follow you. Tell me more about that. What is that, and why is that important?
Well, have you ever had to follow a leader that you weren't real thrilled about following? It's no fun if you're in a situation where you have to do something that you don't really want to do for somebody that you don't really like. And so when I said, well, how to be the leader that people want to follow, that's just about being the kind of person who truly cares about the people that they're leading. And because they care about them and because they're competent as leaders, then the people want to follow them. So, why wouldn't you want to be the kind of leader that people want to follow? And I think a lot of us find ourselves in positions where suddenly we have influence that we weren't expecting to have, and we don't know what to do with that. We're supposed to be getting these people to do something. Well, how do we do that? And a lot of people try different things that don't work very well and end up making everybody mad, and nobody wants to be there. And none of us want to be in that kind of a situation.
Right. Now, you said, so that word influence was interesting that you would pick that word. I heard someone recently speak that everybody's a leader. And I don't know that I agree or disagree with that. What would you say is defined as a leader, or talk about more about that influence?
Well, that's one of John Maxwell's famous quotes, is leadership is influence, right? So if you are influencing someone else, you are leading them. And it may be good leadership and it may be bad leadership, but if you're influencing them, you're leading them. And so I think when people say that everybody's a leader, that's what they're referring to. Even babies have influence. They are very good at getting their parents to do what they need them to do. It may not be a lot of fun sometimes, but there is some influence going on there.
Gotcha. Awesome. So as we welcome people aboard our episode, please join us. Welcome again. Comment below, set your questions that we want to ask Dawn for today. Now, you've said rare leadership throughout this episode and even in the promotion. Would you tell us what is rare leadership and what's the importance of it?
Sure. Rare leadership recognizes that we need to have relational skills in order to lead people well. And so the word RARE is actually an acronym. RARE stands for remain relational, act like yourself, return to joy, and endure hardship well. And the idea is we need to be able to do these things ourselves. And if we're leading people, we also need to be able to help the people around us do these things. And so it focuses on relationships. Now, that's not everything you need for relationships. One of my favorite authors on leadership, Todd Bolsinger, wrote a book called Canoeing the Mountains. And in it, he said that today, what we need from our leaders is technical competence, relational congruence, and adaptive capacity, because culture is changing so fast around us that if we don't have all three of those things, we're not going to be able to stay with what's going on in the culture. Well, most people have technical competence. If you're in a job and you get put into a level of leadership, it's probably because you did a good job at what you were doing. So we figure that's usually taken care of. However, just because you're good at what you do doesn't mean you're good at leading people. And so the relational congruence, the relational skills, that's a whole different ballgame. And it's important that we learn those skills in order to be able to lead the people that we're called to lead. And then the adaptive capacity, well, we're all figuring that one out. But here's the great thing. When we learn these skills, and these are neurological skills, these are we call these relational brain skills. When you learn those skills, your whole brain is actively engaged in what's happening. And so you're better able to adapt. You're better able to think creatively, to do the things that you need to do in order to keep yourself operating at emotional maturity and the people around you as well.
And when you say adaptive, because I get the technical side of it. You and I were talking the other day, which was interesting. So often people get promoted to leadership. They're really good salespeople, then they become a manager, and story after story about how that's just miserable for all involved. Because just because you're good at sales doesn't mean you're good at leadership, right? Or leading others. Maybe you're good at leading yourself. And so what you were sharing with me about the technical side of it, I get that. If you know the technical side of it, totally get that. And on the opposite side of that is the relationship side. If you, as a leader, aren't able to develop relationships, then that's going to, make it hard for you. How is this adaptive fit into this model that you're referencing?
The adaptive capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's about the fact that things change so fast right now that what got you here isn't going to get you there. And you know that, Jim, that goes along with the 9 stages of ownership that you talk about for businesses. What you need when you're starting up a business is not the same as what you need when you're hiring employees and when you're having to add to that. And then you're getting exhausted. And so understanding this is very similar to that 9 stages. One of the things I loved when I got to know you was, oh my gosh, he's doing a lot of the same things we do. He talks about them differently, but what we do for individuals, what we do to help the people who lead, you do for businesses. And so I love the synergy that we're able to have with the things that we do. Awesome.
So let's talk about, again, I just got to repeat this because I love this, is that you have the technical abilities. If I'm a leader and say I'm in property management and I'm a great property manager, but I have to lead other people on my team, how do I go about that? If I'm a realtor and I'm building a team, how do I go about that? And I love that you might have the technical skill, but do you have the relationship skill? Because you asked that you ever work for somebody where you necessarily didn't want to follow them. I was in the Air Force for 4.5 years, and I've had supervisors I did not want to follow, but had to because of rank. And there's others I would follow them into war because I had that kind of respect for them. So I really like, and those are the people, interesting, built relationships with me. I had a relationship with them. The other one was pure rank, right? Relationship versus rank. And then the adaptability side of it, I love that as you're adapting, as things are coming at you, how quickly and what resources do you have to adapt to that? Because I know a lot of leaders who get overwhelmed at work, get overwhelmed with their life, and emotion comes out, right? And now it's what I call emotional leadership. And I don't mean the good type. I'm talking about you will do it this way, etc. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we're going to lead well, so remember the E in R.A.R.E leadership is endure hardship well. In order to do that, we have to be emotionally and relationally mature. And there are skills that we can develop. You're not born mature, right? We develop those skills over time. Well, what the authors of this book have done is the research, and they understand human development and are able to explain it in a way that we can understand. Okay, there's 5 stages of emotional maturity. And when I understand those 5 stages and what are the tasks and skills I need to learn at each stage, I can work on those things. And I can work on them in myself. I can work on them in my team, in my organization. We can do what we need to do in order to grow people who are able to handle what comes at them and who know, okay, if I'm overwhelmed, here's who I need to go to help me with this, because none of us can handle absolutely everything that comes at us, but we can have the maturity to say, I need help with this, and I know how to identify where to go to get that help. And so all of that plays into adaptive capacity as well as to the relational skills and the relational maturity.
So let's talk a little bit more about the emotional effective leadership. I know over the years, we have our guest for next week's episode is Kay Congdon, who's a strategic HR person marked by excellence. She's taught me a lot about behaviors, values, and things like that when it comes to hiring people, vetting people, and developing people. And I knew back in the day, I'm willing to admit this, that I used to be very moody, and that moodiness could affect my leadership style. How does somebody who's emotional as a leader get control of that or manage that? Do you have any recommendations, suggestions on how does someone go about that?
Well, it's a process. And that's one of the reasons why we do what we do in group formats, because you learn emotional skills by being in relationship with people who have those skills and can communicate them to you and can help you develop those skills. And so it's not like you're gonna, go take a class and figure this out. So we need to be able to do that. So but the first thing is recognizing it. It's like, okay, where am I lacking? And I have this fun thing I like to teach people about, the 5 stages of leadership, and what is the motto of people at each stage of leadership. So I'd share those with you if you like.
Yeah, please. That'd be great.
Okay. So the 5 stages are, now these are really difficult. Infant, child, adult, parent, elder. Those are our 5 stages of leadership. We can think of those as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but so stage 1, infant level leaders, their motto is, my job is to let you know I'm upset. Your job is to figure out why and fix it. Have you ever had that kind of a boss, where everybody comes in and they look at the secretary and, which boss are we getting today? Are we getting the happy boss that we all like and love to follow? Are we getting the tyrant that, and you can tell by what the secretary looks like, right? Okay. So that's infant level leadership. We also call that narcissistic, and those definitely no fun to follow. Stage 2, child level leadership. It's a little bit better because at least they know what's upsetting them. My job is to tell you what I want and your job is to do it. So that's pretty much that autocratic leader. But think about it. That's what kids are learning to do. If you are a child, it is very appropriate for you to figure out what you want and ask for what you need, because you can't provide everything that you need. But you don't want people in leadership doing that, right? So then we get to stage 3, which is adult level leadership. And adult level leaders are really good at working together as teams, right? And so as long as we have a good team around us, we can be okay. But as soon as things get overwhelming for the entire team, then we get into trouble. And so that's where we need stage 4 leaders, which is the parent stage of leadership. And if you think about parents, they give sacrificially to their children. They're giving out more than they get back. Well, if you've ever been in management, I know when I was in middle management, I was like, this is just like parenting. It's like, why can't people just turn in their timesheets? No, they have to be reminded, do you want to get paid? That kind of thing. But seriously, as a parent level leader, my job is to help my team grow and grow through difficulties together. Your job is to grow in wisdom and skill as you follow, right? So at the very least, we really want to have parent level leaders. And then when we get to the organizational level, that's when you need people who have the wisdom and the maturity and the skill to be able to make the tough decisions where it doesn't matter what decision you make, somebody's probably going to get hurt. And you have to be the one to make that decision. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be. And it would be easy to hide from that, but it needs to happen. So at stage 5, which is elder level leadership, my job is to build up the whole community and help navigate hardship. Your job is to respect and seek out my wisdom. And unfortunately, in our culture today, we tend to write off the people who have reached that level of leadership. We send them off on cruises and tell them we don't want them around anymore because we think they don't know enough about the technology. But guess what? They've navigated some things that we're going to have to navigate, and we really need their wisdom. So those are the 5 stages and how we identify them. So
What I love about that is, again, all the leadership books, you see the books behind me, from John Maxwell to Stephen Covey to who's the other one, Ken Blanchard. I love what you said there, because if I'm an infant leader versus a parent leader, I love that distinction, because again, I could look at some of the supervisors and mentors I've had over the years where I actually had, I'll tell another one on myself. I had a publishing company years ago in Norfolk, Virginia. And we hired this older woman who we'll say is retired. Used to be super successful. She wanted some extra hours. So I hired her. Me and my partner hired her. And one day she came in and sat at my desk and says, "Can I talk to you?" And now this woman's about 80 years old, right? And I'm like, "Sure." And she goes, "I have a little challenge." And I'm like, "Go on." And she says, "Well, I don't know when I could talk to you." I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you just come right in and you go straight to your desk, and I feel like I'm bothering you. And I want to be a relationship-based boss, not just someone who I just work for. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention." And I was like in shock, because if I'm having a bad day, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to go straight to my office and just hide, right? But I didn't realize how I was showing up in the world. And fast forward years later, I'm working for somebody that you got to go, like you said, walk in and going, "What kind of mood are they in today? Am I gonna poke the bear?" And all of a sudden this other leader comes out that I'm afraid of. And I love those levels, because I can ask myself, what kind of level leader am I being today, tomorrow, when I'm under pressure, when I have no pressure? So I really love those distinctions. So thank you for sharing that.
you're very welcome. And keep in mind, we can operate, like we may be operating at parent level or elder level leadership most of the time, but there may be certain situations where it's like we fall into a hole and we're back at infant or child level. But we can identify those and work on those. So that's part of how this works, is being able to identify, okay, where am I at most of the time, and what's required of me in different situations, and am I expected to be this way at home and another way at work, and what stages am I expected to be in, and then how do I develop the skills to actually operate the way that people are expecting me to operate? Or am I in over my head and I need to recognize that and do something else, do something different? So
Awesome. Well, I'd like to do now, before we run out of time, I want to start answering some of our audience's questions. One of the first questions comes from Michelle from Virginia, and she asks, "Is servant leadership or a subset of another type of leadership?"
Servant leadership was developed first, I think, by Robert Greenleaf. And I think it's more of a style of leadership, recognizing that we are servants, and it takes a certain level of maturity to be able to operate truly as a servant leader. There's a difference between being a servant and being a servant leader. You can serve and not lead, but if you're truly leading people well, you're probably serving them, and you're thinking in terms of how do I serve the people on my team? How do I serve the people in my organization? So to me, it would be a style that could apply in the other types, in the types of leadership. And I think it's important. I think it's an important attitude for leaders to have. Because if you're not there to serve the people that you lead, you're probably a predator.
Makes sense.
And that's not a good place to be.
No. Another question is from Mike from Florida. And Mike asks, how much of leadership is natural ability, personality type, and how much is a learned skill?
I'm sorry. I heard Pat Williams one time. He asked the question, are leaders born or are they made? And he said, well, I've never met a leader that wasn't born. So, I think leaders are grown. And when we understand what it takes for people to grow into everything that they're created and called to be, yes, some people are born more relational than others, and they may have a personality style that's that's easier for people to gather around, but that doesn't mean that you can't grow those leadership skills. And they are really, and I am a perfect example. When I was up until I started learning the paradigm that's underneath the R.A.R.E leadership, which is called the life model, people did not want to be around me. I didn't know how to make eye contact with people. And I am not the same person I was before then. So I'm a perfect example of how you really can learn these things and begin to utilize these skills. They become habits, and then people really do want to be around you and they want to follow you.
Yeah, I almost would get to a point where I might write down the 3 columns, like natural ability, personality type, and learned skill, and really ask myself, where am I in that? Am I natural, or is it learned, or is it my personality type? And then learning more about each one of those areas, I can better myself as a leader. So I think that's great. Next question comes from Michael Scott from Orlando, Florida. And he asks, how close of a relationship do you suggest for good leadership? He was taught not to cross into a friend territory, because then you leave the employer you then leave the employee territory.
Mm-hmm. So you can care about people without having them. You can care about people without them being your friends, right? And I like to think I call it circles of intimacy. And so if we think about having like invisible fences at various levels around us, well, the one farthest out is with people that all we do is have a transactional relationship with. So when we go to the grocery store, it's those people. And then we might have clients that we get to know a little bit better. And, and our employees are probably farther in than that, but they're not friends, right? And so it really depends on your business and what you're doing. But I think it is important for us to have boundaries and to know what those various circles of intimacy are and where people fit in those with us. And the other thing is, we need to understand that if you're in a position of leadership, a lot of times people think they know you better than you know them. And my background is counseling. I'm actually a licensed therapist. And one of the things we learned early on is you are not your client's friend, but they will think that you are, because they're telling you lots of intimate stuff about them. But what they don't realize is you're not telling them intimate stuff about you. At least you better not be if you're their therapist. So, so we do need to understand those things, but just because we can't be friends doesn't mean we can't be friendly.
Awesome. This next question comes from David. David asks, what are some strategies a leader can employ to encourage staff to engage and strive for excellency, who are competent but not fully engaged, i.e. they complete the responsibilities as required in a competent manner, but they don't seek initiative or other opportunities to expand their role, increase their potential income?
I think my question would be, do they want to? And is it worth putting forth the effort to try to draw that out of them? I know that when I was in management for a large organization, in one of my programs, it was a small program. I had 2 employees in that program, and one of them gave all kinds of discretionary energy and time at work, and she would show up early and she would go the extra mile. The other one showed up and did her job. And that frustrated me for a while. And then I thought, why? Okay, she's never gonna get promoted. She's probably going to be the first one to go if we have to lose people, but she shows up and does her job. So let's let her show up and do her job. And it may just be that that's all you're going to get from that employee, but they're not going to go anywhere. And if they want to go somewhere, they're going to have to find the motivation to do that. And that may come through pain, the pain of being passed over for promotion and other things. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I find that sometimes revisiting the vision and mission, at least the beginning of the year or beginning of a quarter, tying the company's goals and aspirations with their personal goals and aspirations, so that if they do more, they gain more to achieve that life. Sometimes people don't get that their business life can affect their personal life financially and things like that.
Mhm. And frankly, we're in a gig economy. So a lot of people aren't going to be able to just show up and do their job, and continue to keep their job. They're going to have that adaptive capacity and put a little bit more effort in. I don't know how people function that way. How can you function without passion for life and for what you do? I don't know how to live like that.
Our last question for our episode, because I wanted to be responsible for those listening today and keep it within that learning level, is what wisdom would you give to leaders to get immediate real-time feedback from their people on moods? How should they approach the boss to bring him or her to center again?
That would take longer than we have.
Well, let me just say this. Well, I guess I would say that if this person wants to reach out to, can they?
To me? Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Yes. So I have my email there, dawn@whitestonepros.com. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to talk with you further about that. So
awesome. Now, as I like to be able to do, to say thank you for your time and being on our episode today, do you have anything that you didn't share today that you felt the need to share that would benefit our listeners today?
Well, one of the things that we talked about is the importance of learning these skills in groups. And one of the things that we do at Whitestone Professionals is R.A.R.E leadership groups. And we have a new group coming up that's going to be starting. We can also put together groups for your organization if you wanted to keep that in-house. So is this a good time to share that?
Yes, please. Again, I really love the R.A.R.E model that you shared with, especially the emotional side of it for someone who tends to be emotional and a middle child, just want to say. I really love that. I love the technical perspective versus the relationship perspective versus the adaptive perspective. Because I think as leaders, if we knew more than just the styles and the rareness that you talk about, I think makes a big difference. And so I would love to know how people can find out more about your program and about your groups.
Well, Jim, I know you have the link for people to go to the R.A.R.E leadership site. We do have a new cohort that's going to be starting in March, and we have an introductory meeting for free on February 17th, where you can find out more about our R.A.R.E leadership community groups. That does include 10 sessions of training, and we do one training a month where you watch a video and there's a worksheet that you work through, and then we gather together as a group to begin working on the skills together. And the way that came about, one of the authors, Marcus Warner, was he wrote this book actually for pastors because churches needed leadership, but it was getting into a lot of businesses. And so those businesses were calling him and saying, we want a program. We've read the book. Now what do we do? And so he would go in and he did events, but he would call me and say, Dawn, they want a program. Can you put together a program for this? So that's how this all started. We started off in corporations, put together programs for them to help their teams grow their leadership skills, and then make it part of the culture of their organization. And then we had individuals coming to us. So we started the online communities last year, right around the time COVID hit. We were already doing it, but COVID kind of bumped the online groups into coming into being faster. So the next one's coming up soon, and we'd love to have people on February 17th.
Awesome. Now, if you wouldn't mind sharing your email address again, and I'll post in the comments after our episode.
Sure. It is Dawn, DAWN, @whitestonepros.com.
Awesome. Well, Dawn, I want to thank you again for being here on our new episode. It normally is, our Jim Roman show. We build a better business, build a better life. But today is Coffee with the Coach. In fact, for those of you still joining us or watching this video, this whole month is Coffee with the Coach, where we drink coffee and answer your coaching questions. So this week we talked about rare leadership and getting people to want to follow you, giving them a reason to follow you. Next week we're going to have Kay Cognitive, which strategic HR person with Marked by Excellence. She'll be talking about how to hire people, but more importantly, from a values perspective, a behavioral perspective, so you can ultimately develop those people. In the third week of this month, we're going to have Jennifer Perro with JLP Leadership, where she's going to be talking about people and processes and how it can help them to perform. And then I'll wrap up the series at the end from an organizational structure perspective, going for green. And so we're going to talk about more about how you structure your business will determine how successful your business will be. So Dawn, again, thank you so much for being on this episode with us today.
Thanks for having me, Jim. It has been an honor and a pleasure.
I can't tell you, getting ready for this and just knowing about the things you talked about today, how rare it is, and I love that word, rare, and the elements that go with it is huge, because again, as we be better leaders, we have better communities. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim.
You're welcome. And for those, again, thank you for being here on the Jim Roman Show, our Coffee with the Coach session. Please join us next week and the weeks to follow so we can help you build a better business to build a better life. I'm Jim Roman. The more you know, the more we grow. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks, Dawn.
Bye.